Welcome to Stories with Grandma Celine, where African wisdom comes alive through tales of destiny, mystery, and the unseen forces that shape our lives. Today we bring you the story of the woman with stars on her head, a powerful folktale of heartbreak, hidden glory, and a destiny that refused to be covered. Journey with us from the busy streets of Port Harcourt to the wide roads of Abuja, where a young woman named Favor Samuel faces delay, disappointment, and spiritual battles that only her shining star can explain. Her lovers flee, her dreams fall apart, but her destiny waits patiently, until one divine encounter changes everything. Sit back, relax, and let us travel into a world where prophecy meets reality, where a single star can open the gates of nations, and where the right eyes finally see the light others were too afraid to face. Favor Samuel was the last unmarried daughter in a family where marriage was almost a competition. Her three sisters had left the house one after another like birds flying from a nest, each wedding ceremony more elaborate than the one before it. The compound in Port Harcourt still echoed with memories of Jeel, drumming, and the laughter of well-wishers, but whenever those memories passed through Favor's mind, they left a sting behind. She lived quietly with her parents, Mr. and Mrs. Samuel, both well respected in their church. Her mother often squeezed her shoulders lovingly and said, "Your time will come, my daughter." But every Sunday when another wedding announcement was made, Mrs. Samuel's voice trembled slightly. It was never loud, but Favor heard it. It was said in hushed tones among old aunties that Favor's star shone too brightly at birth. A prophet had visited the family long ago and proclaimed, "The star of this child will shine late, but when it shines it will blind many. Protect her, for her destiny is unusual." Nobody understood what he meant, but the words were never forgotten. Years later, that prophecy was a shadow Favor carried silently. She was beautiful in a calm, unforced way. Her grace made people say she looked like a queen who didn't know her own crown. Yet suitors came and left with mysterious abruptness, like visitors frightened by something invisible. Church members whispered, "Pretty girl like this, why is she still single?" Favor pretended not to hear, but inside her heart felt like a calabash cracking slowly. Her story, unknown to her, was being woven by forces seen and unseen. And though she didn't know it yet, destiny had begun to stir, quietly, patiently, waiting for the perfect moment to reveal its hand. That Sunday morning started like every other. The choir sang joyfully, the pastor preached with fire, and Favor sat beside her mother near the second row. But her mind wasn't fully in church. Her heart was carrying a silent prayer it had whispered every week for years. "Lord, when will it be my turn?" At the end of the service, the pastor stepped forward with his usual announcement book. "Church, we have good news," he began. "Another wedding." The congregation erupted with claps and cheers. Favor kept her smile steady, but inside she felt her stomach twist. She bowed her head slightly, pretending to adjust her scarf, whispering her familiar prayer under her breath. Her voice trembled, "God, please remember me." But something strange happened that day. As the bride and groom-to-be stood before the congregation, a man Favor had never seen before turned from the back row and stared at her intensely. His gaze lingered for several seconds, long enough to make her shift uncomfortably. Before she could look away, the man suddenly grabbed his Bible, rose from his seat, and walked out of the church quickly, almost fearfully. It was so odd that Favor blinked several times. Had she imagined it? Her mother didn't notice. The choir had begun singing a celebratory hymn, and people were on their feet rejoicing. But Favor's eyes kept drifting to the church doors where the man had disappeared. Why had he looked at her like that? Why leave so abruptly? Her heart tightened, the same familiar ache of unanswered questions. She tried to brush it off, but a small part of her wondered if her prayer had stirred something unseen. She whispered once more, "God, please, let my own day come." Little did she know the heavens were already shifting. If love were a journey, then Favor's path had been full of dead ends. People in church often said she was the complete package, godly, respectful, calm, and beautiful. But behind her gentle smile lay a history of heartbreaks that could make a river weep. Every relationship she entered ended suddenly, without warning, like a candle blown out by a wind she couldn't see. Her longest relationship had been with Tony, a well-mannered civil engineer she met through her eldest sister. Everyone had believed that relationship would lead to marriage. Their parents had met. Dates were picked. Plans were made. 2 months before their introduction, Tony started acting strangely, avoiding calls, cancelling plans, speaking in riddles. One evening he appeared at her gate with swollen eyes. His voice shook as he spoke. Favor, I can't go on with this. I had a dream, he said. What kind of dream? She whispered. He swallowed hard. A man appeared and warned me that if I marry you, I will lose everything. It was the most painful breakup she ever experienced. Rumors traveled fast. Some said Tony's mother never liked her. Others said he had met someone else. But the version he gave haunted her, that marrying her would destroy his destiny. After him came 3 more men, each leaving abruptly, each with strange excuses. One claimed she was too bright for his spirit. Another said something about a star overshadowing his own. The last one simply vanished. Every ending left her wondering if she was cursed, or if something larger than she understood was at play. What she did not know was that destiny often clears the wrong men violently to make room for the right one. Her story was far from over. Favor carried her pain quietly, the way one carries a fragile bowl of water, carefully, secretly, trying not to spill it where others could see. To everyone outside she was cheerful and composed, but behind her bedroom door she fell apart. One evening, after another fruitless day of expectations followed by disappointment, she came home early and lay on her bed, staring at the ceiling. She felt the weight of her life pressing down, heavy as stone. She didn't hear her mother enter the corridor until she began to speak softly to her father. "Samuel, I am worried for our daughter," Mrs. Samuel whispered, unaware Favor could hear. "There is nothing wrong with her," Mr. Samuel replied gently. "I know, but why is this happening? All her sisters are married. Why is Favor suffering like this?" Favor's chest tightened. She sat silently, tears rolling into her pillow. "Mrs. Samuel continued, her voice breaking, "Maybe we didn't pray enough. Maybe the prophecy." Her husband cut her off. "Stop it, woman. God does not lie. Her time will come." But Mrs. Samuel was unconvinced. "Every man leaves her," she whispered. "What will people say?" Favor buried her face deeper into the pillow. It hurt more to hear her mother's worry than her own heartbreaks. She wished she could hide her pain better. Later that night, her mother knocked softly on her door. "Favor, my daughter, are you sleeping?" "Yes, Mummy," she lied. "Okay, just know that I love you, and God has not forgotten you." Favor bit her lip to keep from sobbing. She didn't know that someone, somewhere, was already watching her story unfold. One hot afternoon, Favor stopped at Oil Mill Market on her way home. The scent of fried plantain, spices, and fresh palm oil hung in the air. She was pricing tomatoes when an old woman touched her arm gently. "Daughter," the woman said, staring deeply into her eyes. Favor turned. The woman's eyes were unusually bright, almost shimmering. "Yes, Ma," Favor replied politely. The woman took her palm and examined it, as though reading something invisible. "You carry a light," she murmured. Favor tensed. "A light?" "Yes, a star that draws destiny close, but also makes some people afraid of you." Before Favor could speak, the woman added, "Your husband is traveling to you." "My what?" Favor asked, confused. "He is not here," the woman said. "He is coming from far away. Your path and his will meet like 2 rivers that were always meant to join." A chill ran through Favor. "Please, who are you?" But the woman smiled faintly. "When the time comes, you will understand." Then she stepped into the crowd and disappeared. Favor pushed through the market, searching for her, but the old woman was gone. No trace, no footprints, nothing. It was as if she had melted into the air. That night, Favor could not sleep. The woman's words echoed in her mind like a drumbeat. "Your husband is traveling to you." But Favor had no idea those words were about to come true in the strangest way. Life moved on as it always did, and Favor tried to pick up her heart again. She told herself she had cried enough, that she would try one more time if love came knocking. And it did, quietly, gently, like a breeze blowing through an open window. His name was Chaik. They met at a friend's birthday dinner. Chaik was warm, attentive, and surprisingly sincere. He didn't rush things. Instead, he spoke to her like someone who had been waiting for her voice his whole life. For the first time in years, Favor felt a spark of hope. They spent weeks talking, laughing, dreaming. Chaik prayed with her, something that melted her heart. He seemed different from the others, more grounded, more focused. Favor's mother adored him. Her father gave his cautious approval. Her sisters teased her in their WhatsApp group, calling him future in-law. Slowly, Favor allowed herself to imagine a future again. Maybe her curse had broken. Maybe God had finally smiled on her. Then came the day everything changed. They were on their best date yet. Chike had taken her to a quiet restaurant by the waterfront. They talked like two souls discovering each other, but halfway through their meal, Chike's phone rang. He excused himself and went outside to take the call. 5 minutes passed. 10 minutes. 15. Favor stepped outside, only to see Chike packing violently, beads of sweat on his forehead. "Chike, what's wrong?" she asked. He stared at her as though seeing her for the first time. Then, with trembling lips, he whispered, "Favor, I'm sorry, I can't continue this relationship." Her world froze. What happened? Did someone die? He shook his head. "A warning, I received a warning, a spiritual warning, I can't marry you, your star is too much." He ran to his car and drove off, leaving her standing in the wind. And just like that, hope died again. The weeks after Chike vanished were some of the darkest in Favor's life. She didn't cry at first, she was too numb, too tired, too used to losing love just when it seemed within reach. But pain has a way of cracking even the toughest shells. One night while praying, her voice broke, and her tears finally flowed. 2 weeks later, gossip began to spread like wildfire. Someone sent her a photo, Chike's traditional marriage invitation card. Her hands shook as she read the names. Chike, and another woman's. The wedding was in 3 weeks. At first, Favor refused to believe it, but the truth slapped her across the face when an old friend sent her pictures from the ceremony. Chike wore a wide smile as he posed with his new bride. But that wasn't the twist. The bride looked like Favor, same complexion, same nose shape, same height, even the same kind of smile. It was so uncanny that people who didn't know better would think they were sisters. Many who knew the story whispered, "Did he replace her with someone who looks like her? Is something wrong with Favor? Why does this keep happening to her?" Each whisper felt like a tiny knife in her chest. Her mother hid the news for days, hoping to protect her, but Favor eventually found out. "You are special," her mother whispered when Favor broke down. "Your story is not theirs, your star is not theirs." But Favor was tired of repeating prayers that seemed unanswered, tired of fighting wars she could not see. That night she dreamed again, dreamed of bright stars swirling around her while faceless shadows tried to block them out. One star refused to dim. She woke up trembling. Something was chasing her destiny, but something stronger was protecting it. The dream returned again that night, and again, and again. She stood in a vast dark field. Above her the sky glittered with thousands of stars, more luminous than any she had ever seen. They formed a crown above her head, 12 stars spinning slowly like a halo. But each time she reached up, shadowy figures rose from the ground, faceless but human-shaped, holding long black cloths. They tried to cover the stars, stretching the fabric to block the light. The cloth darkened the sky, dimming the glow. But one star, just one, burned brighter than the rest. It refused to be covered. Even when the shadows pulled harder, the star cut through the darkness like a blade of light. Favor always woke up sweating, gasping for breath. She told her father about the dream one evening. Mr. Samuel listened carefully, stroking his grey beard. His eyes softened with concern. "My daughter," he said, "dreams are not always ordinary. Light attracts both good and evil." "What does that mean?" she asked. "It means your destiny is shining. But sometimes," he paused heavily, "bright stars make people uncomfortable. Not everyone can stand near someone whose light is too strong." His words reminded her of every man who left her. Every strange excuse, every sudden fear. Her father continued, "I once prayed that God should hide your star from wicked people. Perhaps he hid it a little too well." The dream began to make sense, yet added more mystery. Why would anyone want to cover her star? Why her? That night, Favor lay awake for hours. A star that refused to dim. A destiny both feared and protected. A threat she could not name. Something was stirring. Something was approaching. And destiny was waiting. The next evening, Favor found her father sitting under the mango tree in their compound, his Bible on his lap. She joined him quietly, resting her head on his shoulder. He wrapped an arm around her like he used to do when she was a child afraid of thunder. "Daddy," she said softly, "am I the problem?" He chuckled gently. No, you are the blessing some people are not prepared for. But why do men leave me? She swallowed hard. Is my star really a problem? Mr. Samuel looked up at the sky. When you were born, the prophet said your star would shine late. I prayed then, I asked God to shield you from people who would use you. I didn't want your destiny stolen. Maybe that prayer has been working too well. Favor blinked. You prayed that? Yes, he sighed. I wanted God to hide you until the right man came, but I didn't know hiding a star can look like delay. That revelation shook her. Her pain suddenly made sense. Her heart breaks, the fear in men, the strange reactions, all pieces of a puzzle she didn't know existed. Mr. Samuel continued, a man who is scared of your light is not your own. A man who walks away was never meant to walk beside you. But when, she whispered, when will the right man come? Her father smiled, when destiny finishes arranging the meeting. Favor felt a strange peace wash over her. She didn't know why, but her heart felt lighter, as if something had been lifted. She didn't yet know that her destiny was about to shift, with the help of someone she had not met, in a city she didn't yet live in. But the wheels were already turning. Her brother Philip called late one night, his voice bubbling with excitement. Favor, I've been thinking about you. She laughed weakly. What did I do again? No, it's not like that, he said. I've been praying lately and something keeps telling me you need a new environment. Come to Abuja. Favor blinked. Abuja to do what? To rest, to breathe, to see new faces. And maybe work too. I just feel strongly that something is waiting for you here. Philip was not a dramatic person. He never said things like this lightly. Brother Philip, she teased, are you saying God is calling me to Abuja? He chuckled, call it whatever you want, just come, my spirit won't let me rest. Her parents agreed almost immediately. Her mother even began packing her clothes before Favor said yes. Something about the idea felt right, it felt divine. The night before she traveled, Favor walked outside and looked at the sky. The moon was bright, the stars shimmered. Maybe my star will shine in Abuja, she whispered. What she didn't know was that Abuja was indeed waiting with a path carefully arranged, stitched with coincidences that were not coincidences at all. Her destiny was no longer sleeping. It was on its feet, moving toward her. And in Abuja, a man she had never met would soon see stars on her head. Abuja felt like another world entirely. The moment Favor stepped into the city, she sensed an invisible shift, like someone had silently adjusted the threads of her destiny. The air was different, lighter yet strangely watchful. The buildings stretched tall and the roads were wide and confident, unlike the crowded streets of Port Harcourt. Philip's apartment in Carrow district was modest but warm. He welcomed her with laughter, dragging her box inside before she protested. Here you will rest, he said, and maybe finally meet the person God has been hiding from you. Favor smiled but didn't respond. The next morning she took a walk around the neighborhood. Children ran past her, chasing a ball. Hawkers shouted prices of vegetables. Women sat under umbrellas gossiping about everything under the sun. But something unusual happened. As she walked past a group of older women selling okpa and boiled groundnuts, one of them stared at her intently. You are new here, the woman said, her eyes narrowing. Yes, Favor replied politely. The woman nodded slowly, her gaze fixed on Favor's forehead. Your face looks like someone who is about to meet destiny. Favor froze, her heart skipped. Before she could ask what that meant, the woman returned to arranging her goods as though the conversation never happened. Later that evening, Philip asked how her walk went. It was interesting, she said. He smiled knowingly. Abuja has a way of opening doors, just wait. But Favor couldn't shake the woman's words. Someone about to meet destiny. Someone whose steps were leading somewhere she didn't yet understand. She didn't know it, but the spirit realm had already taken note of her arrival. And the first sign was just around the corner. It didn't take long before Philip helped Favor secure a job in Woos 2, working as an administrative assistant for a small private firm. The office was lively, modern, and full of young professionals who seemed eager to make something of themselves in Abuja's bustling heart. On her first day, she walked in wearing a simple but elegant gown, her natural hair wrapped neatly in a colourful scarf. Her smile lit up the reception area. Her new boss, Mrs. Amadi, stood up from her seat when Favor entered. She was a tall woman with sharp eyes and an air of authority. "Welcome, Favor," she said warmly. "We're happy to have you." But as they spoke, Mrs. Amadi kept glancing at Favor's forehead. Again, again, and again. At first, Favor didn't notice, but when she caught her boss staring for the fourth time, she grew uncomfortable. "Ma, is everything okay?" "Oh," Mrs. Amadi blinked quickly, straightening her blouse. Yes, sorry, I was distracted." But she wasn't distracted. She was confused, almost unsettled. 2 hours later, during lunch break, the office cleaner, a slim woman with bright eyes, entered the admin room. She looked at Favor, paused abruptly, then took a step back. "Sorry, madam," she said quietly, "I cannot sweep near that side." "Why?" Favor asked, puzzled. The cleaner lowered her voice. "Because your light is too much." Favor felt her breath catch in her throat. "Light? What light?" She frowned and shook her head. Maybe Abuja people were simply dramatic. Maybe it was coincidence. But deep inside, something whispered that it was. It was a sign. A sign her star was waking up. Over the next few weeks, Favor settled into her new job. She made friends easily and adapted to the fast rhythm of Abuja life. But the strange observations continued, small, subtle moments that made her feel like she was walking around with something glowing on her head. One afternoon, during a meeting, a young intern named Tolu raised his hand to speak but froze mid-sentence. His eyes widened as he stared at Favor. After the meeting, he approached her nervously. "Auntie Favor, please don't be angry, but—" "But what?" she asked. "You look brighter today, like your face is shining." She laughed awkwardly. "Maybe it's the Abuja sun." "No," he shook his head, "it's something else." At lunch, another colleague asked her if she used any special skin routine. Someone else said she looked angelic. Even the receptionist mentioned that she had a glow that wasn't there before. Every comment pointed to the same strange observation, her brightness. Favor didn't understand it, but the more people spoke, the more uneasy she became. One evening, as she and Philip sat watching a movie, he glanced at her sideways. "Sister, you look different," he said. "Different how?" He hesitated, like someone God has just remembered. Her heart fluttered. Remembered. Or revealed. Still, she tried to stay focused. She wasn't going to let strange compliments distract her. She had one goal: rebuild her life. But destiny was already circling her, quietly, persistently, like a hawk waiting for the right moment to strike. And the next blow would come from a familiar direction. Despite her attempts to stay away from romance, Favor eventually met someone new, Abuchi, a colleague recommended by her office friend. He was gentle, God-fearing, and seemed genuinely interested in her. For the first time since coming to Abuja, she allowed herself a small opening in her heart. Abuchi called every day, he prayed with her, he told her he saw a future with her. Favor felt something warm beginning to grow again, tiny like a seed but real. Then, without warning, everything collapsed. On the day he was meant to take her to meet his sister, he arrived at her gate looking terrified. His hands shook as he held his car keys. "Abuchi, what's wrong?" Favor asked. He didn't answer immediately. Instead, he stared at her forehead long enough to make her step back. Then his voice trembled. "My pastor called me this morning." "Okay." He said I must never marry a woman whose star outshines mine. Favor froze. "He said if I marry you, I will be overshadowed forever. He said there is too much light on your head, too much star." Favor's heart felt like it was being squeezed. "So what does that mean?" she whispered. "It means we cannot continue. I'm sorry, Favor, I can't fight spiritual warnings." He jumped into his car and drove off like a man escaping danger. Favor stood there, silent, broken again. Later that night, she whispered in the dark, "God, what have I done wrong?" But no answer came. Only a breeze passed through the window, soft, cold, almost like a whisper saying, "Wait." Everyone has a limit, and Favor finally reached hers. That night, after Abuchi disappeared, she locked herself in her room and let her tears fall freely. She wasn't crying because of Abuchi, she barely knew him. She was crying because she felt cursed, because she was tired of being the one left behind, because every man who saw her future ran from it. She cried until her chest hurt, until her voice cracked, until her pillow was soaked. God, why, she whispered. Why me? What is wrong with me? Why does my star chase people away instead of bringing love? It was the first time she questioned her faith out loud. She vowed that night never to fall in love again. Never to trust again. Never to open her heart again. She told herself she would focus on her job, her family, her life, nothing more. But destiny is stubborn. It waits behind doors we refuse to open. It slips through cracks in the walls we build. It sits quietly in the corner, watching and smiling at our attempts to avoid what has already been written. That same night, after crying herself to sleep, Favor dreamed again. The river appeared, wide and glistening. On the other side stood a man she could not see clearly. He called her name, his voice echoing across the water. Favor. She tried to move closer, but the river stretched wider. Favor, I am coming. She woke up with a jolt, her heart pounding. A stranger calling her from across a river. Someone she had not met. Someone who was coming. Her star wasn't cursing her. It was guiding someone to her. A week after her breaking point, Favor forced herself to resume life normally. She went to work, returned home, cooked, prayed, slept. But something about Abuja began to feel different, almost alive, almost observant. Each morning on her way to the junction to board a taxi, she felt people's eyes lingering on her. Not in a romantic or lustful way, no. This was a deeper kind of stare, the type people give when they see something unusual or someone unusual. One morning, as she walked toward the Cairo junction, a beggar woman sitting by the roadside lifted her head abruptly. You, the beggar shouted. Favor paused, startled. You walk with a crown, the woman rasped. A crown not everyone can see. People turned. Embarrassed, Favor hurried away, but her heart pounded. That was the third stranger in Abuja to comment on something she herself could not see. At work, her colleagues began treating her differently. Some admired her openly, some avoided eye contact, and some acted nervous when she entered a room. One afternoon, just before closing hour, the receptionist rushed to her. Auntie Favor, please, a man came asking for you. Favor frowned. What man? I don't know, he said he's a prophet. He said he saw your star from the road. Her stomach tightened. Where is he? The receptionist pointed outside. But when Favor walked to the entrance and looked around, no one was there. Only the busy Abuja traffic, cars honking, people rushing, Okada men weaving dangerously. The prophet had vanished. That evening, Philip listened quietly as she narrated everything. Sister, he finally said, I think your time is getting close. Favor shook her head. Close to what? Philip smiled slightly. To whatever God has been preparing all these years. But destiny wasn't preparing. Destiny was approaching, step by step. And the first sign would come through someone she least expected. 2 days later, Favor received a call from Port Harcourt. It was her mother, but her voice sounded different, lighter, almost excited. My daughter, how are you settling in Abuja? I'm fine, Mummy, Favor said. Work is good, Philip is taking care of me. Good, good, her mother said, but her tone held something behind it. Mummy, did something happen? There was a brief silence. Then Mrs. Samuel spoke in a low voice. Favor, someone came looking for you. Favor's heart skipped. For me, who? A pastor, not from our church. He said he traveled from Benin City and God showed him your face. Samuel chased him out at first, but the man said something that made us fear and pray. What did he say? Her mother's voice trembled. He said your star has become visible, very visible. He said God is preparing to connect you to a destiny outside this country. Favor felt her breath catch. Outside the country. Her mother continued, he also said forces that blocked your old relationships have been scattered. But new eyes are watching you, both good and bad. Goosebumps crawled up Favor's arms. Mummy, you believe him? I don't know what to believe, Mrs. Samuel admitted softly. But since you left, I feel a peace I can't explain, like you are exactly where God wants you. Favor wiped her forehead. Mummy, it's too much. Her mother chuckled sadly. Your life has never been ordinary, my daughter. That evening, Favor stared at her ceiling as she lay in bed. For the first time in years, she felt something warm, hope trying to return but cautiously. Then she remembered the dream. A man across a river, calling her names. I am coming. She whispered to herself, who are you? But the night offered no answer. Only a sense that she would soon find out. Favor decided to fast for 3 days, just to regain her spiritual balance. But on the second day, something strange happened on her way home from work. She boarded a small town bus heading toward Cairo. It was crowded, sweaty and noisy, the usual Abuja evening rush. She squeezed herself between 2 market women carrying baskets of vegetables. 10 minutes into the ride, the man beside her, skinny, dark, wearing a brown cap, kept glancing at her repeatedly. At first she ignored him. Abuja had enough strange people. But then he leaned forward and whispered, "Madam, cover your head." Favor stiffened. "Excuse me." "Cover it," he hissed urgently. "Cover your star, it is too bright." Her blood ran cold. She pushed away from him immediately, but the man didn't stop. He began muttering in Hausa, his voice trembling as though he was afraid. The other passengers stared. The bus driver shouted, "Malam, wetin be your problem?" The man pointed directly at Favor. "There is too much light on her head, too much, the spirits are following her." The entire bus erupted in confusion. Favor grabbed her bag, yelled, "Driver, stop, I want to come down." The bus screeched to a halt and she practically jumped out. But something unsettling happened. When she turned to look back, the man with the brown cap did too, but his eyes were not angry. They were terrified, as though he had seen something no one else could. Favor stood on the side of the road trembling, clutching her bag to her chest. That night she called her father and told him everything. He took a long breath and said only one thing. "Your journey is beginning." The next day at work, something even stranger occurred. Favor was returning from a nearby shop during her lunch break when she noticed a well-dressed man standing beside a black Prado Jeep. He was in a navy blue suit, wearing dark glasses, holding a small leather notebook. He watched her approach, calmly, intently, as though he had been waiting specifically for her. When she tried to walk past him, he stepped forward. "Good afternoon, Miss Favor." She froze. "How do you know my names?" The man smiled faintly. "Names are easy to know, stars are harder." Favor's heart thudded. He flipped open his notebook. Inside it were dozens of names with some crossed out. "I've been looking for someone," he said. "Someone with a rare star, someone whose destiny calls louder than others." Favor stepped back, alarmed. "Sir, I don't know who you are, please." He raised a hand gently. "Relax, I'm not here to harm you, I just need to confirm something." He lifted his glasses. And for a second, his eyes widened. He whispered almost reverently, "It's you." Favor's breath seized. "It is truly you, the one with the late shining star." She took another step back. "What do you want from me?" The man smiled, bowed slightly, as though greeting royalty, and whispered, "Your story will soon change. Someone else will find you, someone greater than me, someone connected to you by destiny." Before she could respond, a car horn blared. She turned for a second, and when she looked back, the man was gone. Vanished. No jeep. No footsteps. Nothing. Only the warm Abuja breeze blowing softly against her face. She stood frozen, realizing something terrifying. Strangers were not just seeing her star. They were searching for it. That night, sleep refused to come. Favor tossed and turned, her mind replaying everything. The beggar woman, the prophet in Port Harcourt, the man on the bus, the man in the suit. Each one echoed the same message. Her star was visible. Too visible. But why now? At about 2 a.m. she stepped outside to sit on the balcony of Philip's apartment. Abuja was quiet, the night air cool and serene. She looked up at the sky, searching for peace, but instead she saw something else. A shooting star. Bright, fast, unusually close. It streaked across the sky with such intensity that she stood up abruptly, her breath catching. At the exact moment the star faded, her phone vibrated. A message. Unknown number, I saw you. Her heart jumped. Another message followed instantly. Don't be afraid, I will find you again, soon. Favor's fingers trembled. She wanted to wake Philip, but something held her back. A strange calm, as if the message wasn't a threat but a promise. She read the final message that arrived seconds later. You don't know me yet, but your star led me. Her chest tightened. Who was this? How did they see her? Was he the man from her dreams calling across the river? Favor locked her phone and pressed it against her chest. Her journey was accelerating. Her destiny was gathering speed. Someone, somewhere, was being drawn to her. And in just a few chapters, she would meet the man who would change everything. The next day at work, Favor felt uneasy. Every sound startled her. Every glance from a colleague felt suspicious. She replayed the mysterious text messages repeatedly, searching for clues, for meaning, for anything. During lunch, she stepped outside to get fresh air. The Woos-2 breeze blew lightly across her face, calming her nerves. Then she felt it. A presence. Not threatening, not hostile, but watching. She looked around. Across the street, near a row of parked cars, stood a tall man wearing a grey hoodie. The hood was pulled slightly over his head, but she could see the sharp outline of his jaw, his steady stance. He wasn't pretending to look around. He was looking directly at her. Favor froze. The man took a step forward as if to approach her, but then a motorcycle sped past, blocking her view for 2 seconds. When it cleared, the man was gone. Her breath quickened. Was that the same person who texted her? Was he following her? Or was he protecting her? That evening, she told Philip everything. Her brother frowned deeply. Favor, Abuja is not Port Harcourt. If someone is watching you, we need to be careful. He insisted on picking her up from work the next few days, but even Philip seemed confused. What exactly is attracting all these people to you? He muttered. Favor didn't know. All she knew was that ever since she arrived in Abuja, her life had become a magnet, drawing strangers, visions, warnings, and now watchers. But the universe wasn't done with her yet. Something bigger, something far more dramatic, was heading her way. And destiny rarely arrives quietly. By the end of the week, Favor forced herself to return to her normal routine. She didn't want fear to control her. She boarded a taxi to AYA, praying silently for a peaceful ride. But peace was not in the script. When they reached AYA Junction, she came down and waited with other passengers for connecting vehicles. The place was buzzing, drivers shouting destinations, passengers negotiating fares, sellers weaving through the crowd with snacks and cold water. Then she felt it again. A sharp gaze. She looked to her right and saw a young man, barely in his 20s, staring intensely at her. Not in admiration, not in lust, in confusion. He approached slowly. Auntie, please, who are you? Favor stepped back slightly. Excuse me. He nodded nervously. I don't know why, but I can't stop seeing light around your head. It's like. He trembled. Like something is following you. Before she could respond, people around started murmuring, turning to look at her. Her heart raced. Please go, she whispered urgently. But the boy shook his head. No, something is happening around you. Then suddenly his eyes rolled back, and he collapsed to the ground. Favor screamed. People rushed. A crowd formed instantly. Someone shouted for water. Another yelled for space. Within seconds, the boy regained consciousness. He pointed at Favor shakily. Run! The crowd gasped. The boy screamed louder, Run, they are coming. Favor's blood turned cold. Who is coming? Someone asked. But the boy didn't answer. He stood up, staggered through the crowd. And disappeared. Vanished into thin air. Favor stood trembling, unable to breathe, unable to move. Something was closing in on her. Something she didn't understand. Something unstoppable. That night, Favor couldn't sleep. She tossed, turned, prayed, cried, and finally drifted off around 3 a.m. But sleep didn't bring rest. It brought another warning. She found herself standing in a wide, open field. The sky was dark, but stars twinkled like diamonds. In the middle of the field stood a river, wide, calm, shimmering with silver light. On the other side of the river stood a man. She couldn't see his face clearly, but she saw his silhouette, tall, broad-shouldered and still. He raised his head slowly and called her name. Favor. His voice echoed over the water, deep and steady, like a voice she had known long before she came into the world. She tried to speak, but no words came. He stepped closer to the riverbank. It is almost time. Favor swallowed. Who are you? The man didn't answer. Instead, he stretched his hand across the water, farther than humanly possible. She felt warmth wash over her. Suddenly, behind her, she heard footsteps, many footsteps, a crowd approaching from the darkness. She turned and saw blurry shapes running toward her, reaching out, calling her name, trying to grab her. She panicked. Come to me, the man across the river said gently. I can't, she cried. You will, he replied, because your star is calling me. The crowd behind her began shouting. Give us the star. She carries the light. Take her. Favor screamed. The man across the river raised his voice, calm but commanding. Fear not, you are marked for a journey, they cannot stop it. Everything shook violently. The water, the ground, the sky. She woke up gasping for air. Philip rushed into her room. Favor, what happened? She wiped tears from her face. He's calling me, she whispered. Someone is calling me. Philip didn't understand. But Destiny understood. The next morning, Abuja woke up to an unusual weather shift. The sky looked strange, darker than usual, yet glowing faintly around the edges. On her way to work, everyone seemed unsettled. Some blamed the weather, others blamed dry season dust, but Favor felt something different. It felt connected to her. As she neared the office, a woman who sold fruit at the roadside stepped out and blocked her path. You, the woman hissed, her eyes wide with fear. Favor froze. Ma, do I know you? You carry a star not meant for this land. Leave Abuja soon. Favor's heart pounded. Why, what will happen? But the woman backed away, as if frightened to even speak. Before Favor could ask again, lightning cracked through the sky, even though there were no clouds. People ducked. A second flash followed. Then a third. But it wasn't normal lightning. It formed a strange shape, like a man raising his hand. Jesus Christ, someone screamed. People ran for cover. Favor stood still, trembling. The sky pulsed again, briefly, and then everything went back to normal as if nothing had happened. Except everyone had seen it. Everyone. At work, she was unusually quiet. She could feel her heart beating hard, almost painfully. She began to feel like she was carrying a weight, a calling, a message she didn't ask for. During closing time, as she walked toward the road, the man from the grey hoodie appeared again. She gasped. This time he didn't hide his face. He spoke softly, urgently. Tomorrow your life will change. Before she could respond, he stepped into a passing crowd and disappeared. This was the chapter Destiny had been waiting for. The next morning, Favor dressed earlier than usual. She hummed a soft hymn, trying to calm the strange tension rising in her chest. She didn't know why, but today felt different, as if something invisible had placed a mark on her. She stepped out into the Abuja morning, boarded a shared taxi heading toward AYA, and settled in. But halfway into the journey, the driver pulled over abruptly. You will come down here, he said. Favor blinked. Sir, but I paid to AYA. I changed my mind. He wasn't rude. He wasn't angry. He simply looked confused. Almost afraid. Favor came down quietly, clutching her bag. The sun was rising gently behind her. She started to walk the long road toward AYA. Each step felt guided. Purposeful. Like she was walking into the next chapter of her destiny. She had walked only a few minutes when it happened. A car drove past her, slowly, deliberately. It went a few meters ahead. Stopped. then reversed. Her breath caught. The window rolled down. A calm, steady voice said, "Excuse me, young lady, where are you headed?" Favor turned fully. And there he was. Mr. Gideon. The man who would open the door to her future. The man who saw what others only sensed. The man who saw stars on her head. Favor stood still for a moment, unsure whether she was dreaming or awake. The car that had reversed toward her was a silver Toyota Camry, clean and well-maintained. The man behind the wheel looked like he belonged to a different world, a world of calmness and certainty. "Good morning, sir," Favor said cautiously. "Good morning," the man replied, studying her face carefully. "Where are you going?" "Woos too." He nodded. Enter, I'm heading toward town." She hesitated only a second before opening the door. The interior smelled of mint and leather. The man drove smoothly, confidently. After a few moments of silence, he spoke again. "What is your name?" "Favor, sir." "A beautiful name, very fitting." She forced a polite smile. "Thank you." He glanced at her again. "Why were you trekking from that part of the road? You passed the bus stop." She sighed. "The driver I boarded earlier dropped me before reaching AYA. He said he changed his mind." The man's brows furrowed. "Changed his mind, that is unusual." She shrugged, choosing not to overthink it. Then he asked the question she had begun to hate. "Are you married?" She blinked. "Sir, why do you ask?" He smiled softly. "I have my reasons." Favor's heart beat a little faster. "No, sir, I'm not married." The man nodded slowly, almost thoughtfully. Then he said words that made her skin prickle. "Do you want to know why I reversed my car?" Favor swallowed and whispered, "Why, sir?" He looked ahead, breathing deeply. "As I drove past you, I saw stars on your head." The world around her seemed to fade. "Stars on her head." He continued, "I thought it was a reflection, but when I drove further, the stars followed you. Bright, unmistakable. That is when I knew I had to reverse." Favor could not speak. Could not blink. Her destiny had just spoken through a stranger. Silence wrapped itself around the car. Favor stared at Mr. Gideon, unsure whether to be afraid, amazed, or both. "Sir, what do you mean by stars?" she finally asked. Mr. Gideon kept both hands on the steering wheel as he spoke. "In my family, the men have a gift, a spiritual sight. We don't talk about it openly. We only speak when the vision is strong, and yours was unlike anything I've ever seen." Favor felt goosebumps rise along her arms. He continued, "Some people have one star, some have two, but your head carries many stars, bright, white, and moving." Favor stared at her lap, trembling. "Sir, this is strange." "I know," Mr. Gideon said softly, "but listen carefully. For 6 months, my younger brother in America has been asking me to help him find a wife. A special kind of woman, not ordinary, someone with destiny." Her breath caught. "Your stars," Mr. Gideon continued, "told me my search has ended." Favor looked up sharply. "Sir, I don't understand." He smiled gently. "My brother will understand. He was born with the same sight. When he sees you, he will confirm everything." Favor's heart nearly stopped. A man she had never met in America, waiting for a woman with a star. Her mind screamed that it made no sense. But her spirit stirred. Mr. Gideon slowed the car as they approached Woos 2. "I would like to take your number," he said warmly. "Not for myself, for the purpose of destiny." Destiny. That word again. Hands shaking slightly, Favor recited her number. Before she stepped out of the car, Mr. Gideon said quietly, "You may not understand today, but soon, very soon, your life will shift." Favor stepped out, staring after the car until it vanished. The stars on her head were becoming visible to everyone except her. 2 days passed. 2 days of restlessness. 2 days of replaying Mr. Gideon's words in her head. 2 days of wondering whether she had stepped into a folktale or a divine script. On the 3rd evening after work, her phone rang. Unknown number. Her heart leapt. "Hello." A familiar voice answered. "My daughter, this is Mr. Gideon." Favor exhaled shakily. "Good evening, sir." I spoke to my brother, he said excitedly. I told him everything, the stars, the encounter, your name. He became quiet for a long time. What did he say? Favor whispered. He said, bring her to me. Her heart pounded. To him's how? Mr. Gideon laughed softly. Calm down, not immediately, we start with a conversation. He explained that his brother, Simeon, had been praying for a very specific type of woman for years. A woman with destiny, a woman with calling, a woman whose path would align with his. He asked to speak with you, Gideon said. Favor froze. Now, so soon. Sir, what if he doesn't like me? Gideon chuckled. If you see what I saw on your head, you will fear nothing. Favor's throat tightened. I'm just overwhelmed. I know, he said gently, but sometimes destiny doesn't knock softly, it breaks the door. He sent Simeon's number and told Favor to call him when she was ready. That night, Favor sat on her bed, staring at Simeon's number for almost an hour. Her hands trembled. Her chest tightened. Her mind spun. Finally, she whispered a prayer and pressed call. The phone rang once. Twice. 3 times. Then a calm, deep voice answered. Hello, Favor, I've been waiting. Simeon's voice was deep and steady, carrying a warmth that softened her immediately. For a moment, Favor forgot how to breathe. Hello, she stammered. I'm glad you called, Simeon said. His voice held assurance, not arrogance, not pride, just quiet confidence. The kind that came from someone who had walked through many fires and come out refined. I heard everything from Gideon, he continued, but I want to hear your own version. So she told him. About her heartbreaks. Her delayed relationships. Her unanswered prayers. Her move to Abuja. Her encounters with strangers who saw her star. Her dream of the man calling to her across the river. She kept her voice soft, afraid she sounded ridiculous. But Simeon didn't laugh. He didn't doubt. Instead, he said something that made her eyes fill with tears. Favor, everything you said matches what God showed me months ago. She wiped her tears. Matches. Yes, Simeon said. I saw a woman in my dreams, standing alone, carrying light on her head, a late shining star. A woman whose path would align with mine. A woman from my state, just like you. Favor's breath hitched. Your state, where are you from? When he mentioned the state, she gasped. They were from the same state. Simeon laughed softly. Yes, that is one of the signs I was told to watch for. Favor's heart fluttered. Favor, he said gently, I believe we are meant to meet, not by chance, by destiny. Give me time and I will come to you. Her fingers trembled. Simeon, why me? Because your star called mine, he replied. Her chest tightened. She didn't know whether to cry or laugh. But she knew one thing. Her long season of heartbreak was shifting. Destiny was unfolding. A week after their first conversation, Simeon called every night. They talked for hours, about life, faith, childhood memories, fears, hopes, scars. There was an ease between them that frightened her. A peace she hadn't felt in years. One night, Simeon spoke in a tone that carried a new level of seriousness. Favor, I want you to come to America. Her heart stopped. Yes, sir. Not immediately, he chuckled. But soon, I want us to meet face to face. I want clarity, I want confirmation, and I want to honor you properly. Favor felt tears rising. This is too fast. I know, Simeon said gently, but when destiny is delayed for a long time, it accelerates. He explained that he had already spoken to Mr. Gideon and made preparations. He wanted to start the process for her travel documents. She was speechless. Favor, Simeon said softly, I believe you are my wife. I believe you are the woman whose star matches mine, but I want you to be sure too, no pressure. No man had ever spoken to her like that, honorably, respectfully, with purpose. She whispered, I'm scared. I know. He replied, but I'm here, and our steps are guided. The next day, Philip noticed her glowing. Who is making you smile like this? He teased. She blushed. Philip, something is happening. Her brother studied her quietly, then nodded. I told you, he said, your time is near. And he was right. Because 3 months later, Favor Samuel boarded a plane. Her heart trembling. Her destiny unfolding. Her star shining. Heading to America. To meet the man who saw her before he ever saw her face. The day Favor boarded her plane felt unreal. Philip walked beside her through the airport, carrying her small bag, glancing at her every few seconds as if confirming she wasn't a dream. At the check-in counter, Philip hugged her tightly. Go, he whispered, your time has come. Favor nodded, eyes watery. She passed through security, moved through immigration, and finally stepped into the departure lounge. As she waited to board, she whispered a prayer. Lord, if this is you, confirm it when I meet him. She remembered everything. Mr. Gideon. The stars. Simeon's voice. Her dreams. The strange peace settling over her soul. When they called her boarding group, her knees trembled. She walked onto the aircraft, her heart pounding like a drum. During the long flight, she barely slept. Her mind replayed every prophecy, every sign, every word Simeon had spoken. Your star called mine. Give me time and I will come to you. When the plane finally landed, she inhaled deeply, American air, a new land, a new chapter. At the arrivals section, her hands trembled as she scanned the crowd. Then she saw him. Tall, dark-skinned, clean-cut. Wearing a navy blue jacket and holding a small bouquet of white lilies. His eyes locked onto her immediately, like he recognized her spirit, not her face. He walked toward her slowly. She froze. When he reached her, Simeon smiled deeply and said, Favor, you look exactly like what I saw in my vision. Her bag slipped from her fingers. Her breath caught. Because the moment he stood in front of her, she saw it. A faint glow like tiny light sparks, hovering around his head. Her mouth fell open. Simeon had a star too. Destiny was real. And it had just stood face to face with her. For a moment, neither of them spoke. They simply stared, absorbing the magnitude of the moment. Simeon finally extended the bouquet. These are lilies, he said softly, purity, new beginnings. Favor accepted them with shaking hands. Thank you. He picked up her luggage with the quiet authority of a man who didn't just want her, he was prepared for her. As they walked toward the parking lot, Simeon kept glancing at her with a gentle smile. It's really you, he murmured, you're real. Favor laughed nervously, I should be saying that. When they reached his car, he opened the door for her. Inside, the car smelled faintly of cologne and vanilla air freshener. As he drove, he said, I know this may sound strange, but I've known your spirit for months. Seeing your face just confirms everything. Favor swallowed. When I saw you, I also saw something, a light above you. He nodded slowly. My father once told me, when a man meets the woman tied to his destiny, her spirit opens his gift. Favor turned to him, so you haven't seen your own star before. Only in dreams, he said, but seeing you awakened it. Her heart thudded. Simeon continued, my brother was right, you're not ordinary, heaven marked you. She blushed slightly. When they arrived at his home, Simeon led her into a warm living room decorated with soft colors and framed scriptures. It felt peaceful, like a space built for prayer and purpose. Rest, he said, you've traveled far, tomorrow we talk. Favor nodded, though her mind was racing. That night, lying in the guest room, she whispered, Lord, is this truly my husband? And a quiet warmth filled her chest. The same warmth she had felt in her dreams months ago. 2 stars had finally met. And heaven was smiling. The next morning, Simeon invited her to join him in prayer before breakfast. They sat in the living room floor, hands apart, eyes closed. As he began to pray, Favor felt something shift. A presence. A peace as thick as warm oil. The same feeling she had in her dream by the river. Simeon prayed with a depth she had never encountered in a man, steady, reverent, intimate. He prayed for direction, clarity, wisdom, and alignment with heaven. Then something unexpected happened. As Simeon prayed, Favor felt a sudden weight on her head, like a gentle hand pressing, warm and heavy. Her breath caught. She opened her eyes. Simeon had stopped praying and was staring at her in awe. "Your star is bright," he whispered. Favor blinked rapidly. What does that mean?" He shook his head, overwhelmed. "No, today it's brighter than when Gideon saw it. Something is happening." Before she could respond, the room suddenly flickered with warm light, not physical light but spiritual. A presence so real she almost cried. Simeon gasped, "This is the confirmation I prayed for." Tears streamed down Favor's cheeks. She didn't understand everything, but she felt God's presence so strongly she trembled. After prayer, Simeon sat beside her. "Favor," he said gently, "I want to ask you something." Her heart pounded. "In all your life," he continued, "has any man treated your spirit with honor?" She shook her head silently. Simeon smiled warmly. "Then that is why I'm here. I don't want your beauty first, I want your destiny. I want your soul aligned with mine." She wiped her tears. "Simeon, what are you saying?" He took a breath. "I'm saying I want a future with you." Her heart melted. Everything in her spirit said yes. But destiny was not done yet. Over the next week, Simeon took Favor around the city, showing her parks, African restaurants, small food shops, and his church. People at the church welcomed her warmly, but 3 different people who had never met her before, said the same thing. "You carry light. You have a shining gift. You look like someone with destiny." Favor was overwhelmed. This couldn't all be coincidence. One evening, Simeon invited 2 respected elders from his church to pray with them. After prayer, one of the elders, an older woman with silver hair and sharp spiritual sensitivity, looked at Favor and said, "My dear, do you know why your relationships failed in the past?" Favor swallowed. "No, Ma." The woman smiled kindly. "Because you were never meant for ordinary men. Your spirit is too heavy for men without calling." Simeon closed his eyes, touched deeply. The woman continued, "You were reserved for someone whose destiny would align with yours, someone chosen." She pointed gently at Simeon. "Him." Favor covered her mouth, tears streaming uncontrollably. The second elder, a quiet man, nodded. "Your stars agree. Heaven has been waiting for this union." Favor trembled. This was no longer chance. This was no longer imagination. This was prophecy, confirmed again and again. That night, as Simeon walked her to her room, he said softly, "Favor, before you came, I prayed for a wife who would understand destiny, a wife whose spirit was prepared." He turned to her, his voice thick with emotion. "You are that woman's." Favor's breath caught. She could feel her entire life shifting, finally making sense. "Simeon," she whispered, "I am ready. Whatever God wants, I agree." Simeon smiled. A deep, relieved, grateful smile. "Then tomorrow," he said, "I ask you the real question." Favor's chest tightened. The real question. Her destiny was knocking at the door. The next morning was unusually calm. The sky was clear. The air was warm. Everything felt intentional. Simeon picked her up from the guest room. "Come," he said softly, "I want to take you somewhere." He drove her to a quiet riverside park, water flowing gently, trees swaying peacefully. Favor froze. This looked like the place in her dream, the river where Simeon had once called to her. Her eyes filled with tears. "You've been here before," Simeon said softly. She nodded. "In my dream." He took her hand and led her to a wooden bench overlooking the water. For a moment he said nothing. He simply stared at the river, then at her. Finally he spoke. "Favor, when I saw you at the airport, everything in me settled. The searching ended." She swallowed. "When we prayed together," he continued, "heaven responded. The signs aligned, the words matched, your star matched mine." He dropped to one knee. Favor gasped. "Simeon." He held her hand gently. "No ring. No show. Just sincerity." "Favor, Samuel, will you marry me? Not because of beauty or loneliness or pressure, but because destiny has tied our futures together." Tears poured down her face. Her heart pounded so hard she could hear it. Her entire life, every heartbreak, every delay, every strange encounter, made sense now. She nodded, crying, "Yes, yes, Simeon, I will." Simeon let out a breath of relief and pulled her into a warm, secure embrace. When they stood, the river reflected sunlight in tiny sparkles, like the stars that had hovered above their heads for months. Two destinies had found each other. Two stars had aligned. Prophecy had spoken. And as they walked back to the car hand in hand, Favor knew without a single doubt. The man she dreamt of, the man calling her across the river, was Simeon. Her journey of pain had led her to purpose. Her waiting had led her to destiny. And destiny had led her to love. Thank you for listening to the woman with stars on her head. Remember, every destiny has its timing, and every star shines when God commands it. No matter the delays, heartbreaks, or disappointments, your light can never be hidden when it is meant to rise. If you enjoyed this story, don't forget to like, share, and subscribe to Stories with Grandma Celine. Turn on the notification bell so you never miss a new folktale filled with African wisdom, destiny, and the magic that lives in everyday life.